Hello my friends, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be a little bit off-kilter from my normal videos, and I don't expect it to do super well because it's just me talking about a topic that I'm rather passionate about, and had some revelations with recently, and it's also something I'm pretty well known for on the channel, and that is of course talking about game balance. More specifically, game balance in the realm of the current JoJo fighting game space that I usually occupy, but it can also apply to general game balance as a whole, as well as games struggling with their identity, and there's a lot of other more nuanced things that we're going to be talking about today. But if you're interested in that topic and my 2 cents, well, this is going to be the video. It's also going to be a good chance to take a look back on some of the things that I used to say or said in the past and how my views have changed on those things over time. I'm a strong believer in trying to learn from your mistakes, as well as understanding that hindsight can be 20/20 sometimes, and a lot of the time you simply don't have all the information and you work with everything that you can, but regardless, nobody's going to be right on everything all of the time, and most notably, you have to look back on the things that you did and said and question whether or not they were the right things in order to not make the same mistakes again. First, we're going to be starting with some background. What prompted this conversation to begin with? And that would be the background footage that you're seeing right now, TCA. Now, as a lot of you have either figured out or been told directly by me, I used to be a member of the design team for TCA, which effectively meant that I had a lot of creative freedom in terms of suggesting things about the game and just generally trying to push the game forward. I put a lot of time and effort into trying to make this game improve, and at the end of the day, most of it pretty much went nowhere, but it was a good learning experience for me. That being said, eventually what it came down to was I was spending way too much time making videos and behind the scenes working on TCA related stuff, and not only was it not going anywhere, but it was directly harming me, with my channel basically getting worse and worse and worse, with a whole bunch of videos that either directly didn't do well or videos that did do well but never affected the player counts. So at some point you just gotta cut your losses and call it a day. That being said, I initially intended to continue covering the TCA updates as they came out, even if I wasn't necessarily making videos on the game all the time. And if you've been paying attention to the channel, you'll know that 2 updates have come out since then, and I've only really sort of covered one of them, and in that coverage I was pretty heavily negative. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, I am not the arbiter of what is and is not fun. But that being said, it probably shouldn't be hugely surprising that after I took a step back from the design team and other people mostly took over for me, that a lot of the things that I used to advocate for and such behind the scenes in the design team fell through, and that would in turn make the updates less fun for me because, well, I didn't have any input, so we were basically just gambling on other people at that point. But the thing that was almost sort of the nail in the coffin for TCA, at least for me, was the fact that the balancing had continuously taken a downwards trend in my opinion. And it's probably not in the way that you immediately would have assumed that it would be. If you saw the video where I talked about the update, you might think that boxing is broken, and that's why I didn't enjoy the update, and that's why I wasn't having fun. But it's actually kind of almost the opposite of that. The reason that I stopped enjoying TCA was the fact that the game slowly but surely became too balanced. Yes, you heard that right. The game got too balanced for me. If that isn't out of character, I don't know what is. So that then begs the question, if a too balanced game isn't fun, at least in my opinion, then what have I been doing on this platform for all these years? I've always been advocating for things to be more balanced. I don't want things to be ridiculously overpowered. So does that just make me a hypocritical loser who has no idea what he's talking about? Well, sort of. Some of my previous takes definitely could use some work, but I don't think this take is actually that out of the ordinary. See, the issue here is that, in my opinion, balance needs to strike a bit of a middle ground. On Roblox, there tends to be a pretty hefty skew when it comes to game balance, especially in regards to progression. You basically have 3 different sides. One of them is where you unlock literally everything from the start, a la Battlegrounds. The game is as balanced as it necessarily can be, and in my opinion, incredibly unfun. I'm just not invested in those games. I know people are, but it ain't me. Then you have the progression-based, incredibly unbalanced games. We're looking at stuff like Blocks Fruit. In that game, if you take anyone who's got less than like 15 hours and you put them up against, 15 hours is general. How long did I spend? Like 12, and I didn't even get halfway through. So if you take someone with 27 hours and you put that person up against somebody with 6, they get killed in one shot. That you literally press one button and they die. Is that balance good or fun? Well, no. And then finally, we've got an almost middle ground with TCA, where there's progression, and if you put someone that has a bunch of hours up against someone who doesn't have very many, they're probably going to lose. But in an attempt to make every single stand all equally strong, you then have to question why there's even a progression system in the game to begin with. If the world over heaven is going to be just as strong as any stand that you can pull from an arrow, then that then begs the question, well, why would you go out of your way to get the world over heaven at all? Of course, if you like the stand, then that's the reason, but then why is it locked behind a quest? And this is where I think the cracks start showing. The question that I think needs to be asked is, at what point does fun trump balance? And the same thing goes for mechanics, stun, margin for error, etc. One of the things that I noticed quite a bit while playing TCA is that there was a fair amount of extremely tight combo windows, where if you managed to know the routes in order to get the combos, and you were quick enough on the draw when it comes to using the moves, then you could true combo certain moves. But like I said, the timings were really strict. So if you have a less experienced player, they're probably not going to consistently pull these things off. But at higher level play, this might be broken, which is a perfect segue into higher level play. I am of the opinion that higher level play, or competitive play, is going to be the death of TCA. If the game isn't dead already, this is what's gonna kill it. And as of current, the behind the scenes is basically dominated by the testers, who all think they're hot shit and all think they know exactly what they're talking about, and nobody else has any clue what they're talking about. Sorry, not sorry, testers of TCA. I quit, so I'm allowed to be a jackass now. These people want their perfectly finely tuned fighting game balance. And on the Roblox platform, this is not something that's going to draw a lot of players. There's a very good reason why games like Blocks Fruit are wildly popular, and it's because trash cans can jump on and still feel like they're accomplishing something even though they're terrible. You need to cater towards the lowest common denominator pretty often in order to make these games work. But to be more specific in the medium, let's talk about our favorite game, Your Bizarre Adventure. This game, despite being very similar in TCA, being a quote-unquote competitive fighting game, is wildly unbalanced. And despite being wildly unbalanced, it's not so unbalanced to the point where there's one thing that just rules the entire meta. Or at least I doubt there is based on my experiences. Here's a quick example of something that would never make it in a million years in TCA. Star Platinum the World. I did a funny haha meme about this stand in my April Fool's video this year, where I was talking about how great the balance was, and obviously in the background I was showing poorly balanced things, and so I used this as a gag. Star Platinum the World's time stop does half your health. Against any stand that doesn't have time stop resistance, you will basically guarantee to take half health. That's insane. Not only that, but if you land a beatdown, after you take half someone's health, they have like 10 health remaining. So you have 2 moves, and if you land 2 of them, then the opponent basically dies. Does that exactly scream to you balanced? Absolutely fucking not, no. But despite the fact that that doesn't exactly scream balance, was Star Platinum the World one of the things that a ton of people have been complaining about in recent memory? No, not really. Despite the fact that the rest of its tools aren't necessarily bad per se, the stand is not so exceedingly overpowered that it breaks the game. But on face value, it looks overpowered because it has some stupid fun options. Let's be realistic here. Being able to time stop someone and take half their health is funny. I don't know what else to tell you. It's funny. Being able to beat down them right afterwards and take the rest of that half of their health is also funny. It's not necessarily balanced. It turns out balanced in some regard at the end of the day, but it's something that never in a million years would have made it into TCA because, oh my god, half your health is gone, that's broken, etc., etc. And so if we circle all the way back to when I was talking about Blox Fruit and how that game is popular because even a trash can get something done, when you look at it in the lens of Star Platinum the World, a stand that can, in theory, kill someone in 2 buttons, especially in theory, kill bad people in 2 buttons, now you've got something where a trash can pick it up and they can totally suck ass, but press 2 buttons and potentially win against another trash can. And, well, for them, that's fun. But like I said, because of the extremely rigid and temperamental people of the quote-unquote competitive scene, fun things like this get almost immediately vetoed when it comes to TCA. So basically, I think what I'm trying to say here is that balancing is in of itself a balancing act. You need to have a good understanding of what is going to be fun and what isn't, as well as allowing players to generally feel powerful while they're playing the game. TCA's big problem in recent times is that everything that's powerful gets nerfed and everything that isn't powerful gets brought up, but then you just end up left with a whole bunch of neutered and generally weak-feeling stands. And that just kinda sucks. It seems like that general trend is probably going to continue, as Gold Experience Requiem just got nerfed, because once again, it's got a whole bunch of overpowered as shit things at top level play that you'll likely never see at lower level play. And so now it's going to be less good at lower level play and less fun to play, all to cater towards a very small subset of people. It's still good and by no means bad, but simply not as much fun as it used to be. That goes for a lot of stands in the game, and as one final sort of act as the design team member before I really fully took a step back, I left them a whole list on how I felt about the current balancing, as well as changes or reverts mostly to a whole bunch of things that happened with the game. If you're curious of reading that list, I'll probably copy-paste it into a pinned comment or something, so you can have a better idea of the kind of stuff that I was advocating for in terms of fun factor. So, in other words, what I'm saying is, if you're making a game, please, good God, don't cater towards the competitive players. We're done. See ya.